Good evening, everyone. Gareth Presh, founder of the World Health Innovation Summit, and welcome to this evening's WHISTalks with Ivana Daniell this evening. Ivana's in London, and good evening. How are you this evening?
Hello, Gareth. I'm very well, and thank you so much for inviting me tonight to talk. I'm very well in a very beautiful and sunny day in London. End of the day.
Excellent, excellent. Let's just jump straight into it. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background? And we're really looking forward to having this discussion this evening.
Thank you. Well, my name, as you said, is Ivana Daniell. I am Italian born, but I spent my life mainly in England and a bit around the world. So I am proud to tell everyone my age, because we will talk about aging well. I am in my 60s and really proud to tell to everyone my age when everybody wants to hide it. So I am a movement therapist. I am a body and posture expert with about 30 years of experience working in this field. People ask me, what is movement therapy? Because in the past, movement therapy was a bit a science that was not really defined. But today it is quite defined. I was a pioneer of movement therapy, and I started my career as a movement therapist in the 90s. So I have a clinic here in central London, but I worked a bit around the world. I worked, and mainly I developed my expertise and my skills in Singapore, where I worked in a beautiful hospital, and I worked in US, Asia, Europe, Italy, everywhere, basically around the world. I'm very, very blessed.
Fantastic. It sounds like an amazing career. So let's take us back. Why did you start? Why did you get into this career? What was the purpose?
Well, the purpose has been there since ever. I was born to move. I was born to dance. So since I was a little girl, apparently my parents used to tell me that I used to dance around and pirouette around the house since I was 2 and 3. So my mother put me in ballet school at 3. Very, very early. At 4, I was already on point shoes. It was a true passion. But what I noticed, what I really understood much later, is that my passion to movement was mainly motivated by something that was discovered much later. I was dyslexic. So I had a terrible problem as a child at school. You have to think I was a child in the late 50s and 60s in a very Catholic school where the word dyslexia didn't even exist at the time. So I was called a lazy child, distracted. I didn't want to follow. Actually, I was extremely interested in learning, but I had the difficulties of a dyslexic child. So where did I excel was in my ballet school. I developed a different communication, a different language, movement. So for me, being able to move, understand the movement and observing movement was something that started as a child, because that was where in school I really struggled because of the dyslexia. In the ballet academy, I was a star. So of course, for a child, it was amazing. So I continue with my career as a dancer, but growing up in a very traditional Sicilian city, Palermo, from a family of lawyers for 3 generations, my father didn't give me choice. I had to go to law school. So wow. I had to leave my career as a dancer young, and it was heartbreaking for me, and go to university and study law. And I had no choice. But actually, when I finished, I told my father that my dream was to learn English, and I wanted to come to London to study English, because before starting my career, it would have been really necessary for me to learn this language. And this was a time where in southern Italy, no girls would do and dare to have such an adventure. So I did, and I never went back home. So I never became that lawyer. And of course, my father was very disappointed.
So you left Palermo, headed to London, and what got you into the dance then? What pulled you back in?
So I was here, I studied English, and sorry, sometimes the images come out, so I just slide. So my passion came a bit later. After I spent 2 years here in London, I went back to Italy and met a wonderful man, and he was a choreographer, dancer from classical background. And he asked me if I could work with him. And so I became the manager of his dance school. And that's what brought me back in my 20s to the career of dance. So it was amazing. My passion was back. So I did have a few years, about 10 years of that career. I danced, I did the TV, the theater. And so my dream came true. So...
And I was going to ask, just as you started your dance career and as a lawyer, were you aware of the health side of your life? Like, was that an important part of living? You know, you had a Mediterranean diet. If you look at the Italians, they have a very high, you know, shall we say, the life expectancy is very high. You know, I think they've been on top for many years, just recently knocked off the top by Spain. So was that part of growing up? Was it all like, because, you know, I think this is an important aspect of kind of our conversation, which leads into how you know, embrace aging and growing old and should we say exercise and nutrition. And so is that very much part of the DNA?
Yes, I think for us Italian, this is part of the DNA, and actually nutrition and all that is part of our upbringing. So it was really something that came naturally in the way. And of course, as a dancer, the discipline, that was my best thing. Enormous discipline, years and years of ballet academy that gave me that sense of discipline. So that combination was really fantastic, and I really have to thank that. Law school gave me a mind for analyzing. So I am also very grateful for that, because it gave me a different perspective, as I am a true artist and very creative person. I think that going and studying law brought me a bit, grounded me a bit of really looking at things from a different point of view. It would have been absolutely not a good career for me. I hated it, and it was for me so dry. So despite the disappointment of my father and my family, I pursued my passion. And it was only years later that truly all this came to really be created, my method. So I came back to London in the early 80s, and I married and I had a family, and I decided to go back to study. And my dream was to complete a dance education, and I went to the Laban Center. There was at the time the Goldsmith College. And I wanted to become a choreographer. Actually, I wanted to be more of an academy dance teacher, choreographer, be in the arts. And so I did a postgraduate course at Laban and that was beginning of 91 to 93. And it was there that I discovered something different. First of all, I was incredibly injured. I had a terrible back problem because I was still taking ballet classes. I had some injuries during my professional career, and this back problem was becoming really very unbearable. So yes, young people can have back problems, and especially ex-athletes or ex-professional dancers, what I call elite movers, people who have a career in movement, gymnasts and dancers. So I discovered, and it was actually in 86, the Pilates method. But the Pilates method of that time was completely different, Gareth. It was really what Joseph Pilates had created. It was amazing. To become a Pilates instructor, it was 2-3 years of studies. It was almost like going to physiotherapy school. It was so amazing. And it was, so I started studying that. I got so fascinated because it brought me back to my true passion, observing the human body through movement. So there was that analyzing part that interested me. It was not only the creative. So in Laban, I started also to study anatomy and Pilates. And so slowly my interest is shifted from arts to more observing the human body, and I started with that. So that was how it all started.
We've had a couple of questions have already come in, so let's take them, because we're in the middle of your journey at the moment, so we're going to park it for a second. But Ken Hurd has asked here. Ken he's watching in here. He said, dyslexia, are you able to help people who currently live with dyslexia issue find more confidence with dance and fitness? So can you just give us an insight into that? That might be helpful.
Well, you see, I think the times have changed, thank God. And dyslexia is something that is absolutely, children with dyslexia. My younger son has got dyslexia. So there is an incredible support for that. At the time, it wasn't. So for me as a child, being able to coordinate movement and express myself through movement, it was so important. Yes, today there is a big movement for helping people with dyslexia to coordinate, because maybe a dyslexic child or person has a talent for moving, could be an amazing dancer or something else. So I think it's really to find each of us as a different way of communication or observing, and this is really not making a difference. Each one his own skills. So yes, definitely it can help and give confidence.
Excellent. I think it's a great example. And we've a couple of other questions here. Olaf's asked, how important was family values, and you touched on that, and where you encouraged, around any traditional diet or exercise. So they're asking about was there a traditional diet? Was it a traditional exercise? Can you elaborate on that? Did your family grow their own fruit and vegetables? And what were your favorite?
There was not a tradition. You have to think that I left at 21. And as a child, the only tradition was a very strict ballet academy. So it was like military school. So okay. And in terms of diet, of course, being a professional dancer, we are very, very careful. My family, we had a very healthy diet, and my grandmother and my mother always taught me we ate seasonal foods. For instance, at the time, only the one that were grown in Sicily. We had a wonderful variety of, of fish and local food. So food is a culture we have in Italy, and food is linked with love and with family. So we eat with love, and being together is a social thing. So I think for us Italian, there is so much happiness and love behind food. That's what I think. Eat with love. That is very important.
I mean, I was going to touch on the social aspect of the Italian lifestyle. I think it plays a very important role in our health and well-being. I was in Milan, I think it was last year, and at a conference, and one of the things I was fascinated was the people who were on the trains who were talking to each other. So they weren't glued to the mobile phone. They were actually like interacting with each other. And like you say, when they go out for a meal, everyone goes out together. And I think it has an enormous effect on the family health and well-being, and that interaction. I think it's just invaluable. So just going back to your story, and you're halfway through, and you're in London again, and you're starting your family, and then how did you get into the medical side of things? Can you tell us that journey, and then into your methodology, which is world renowned?
So I in 97, my ex-husband was moved to Singapore. So it was a big shock for the whole family. I had two small children. I was starting here my career just out of the Laban Center, planning to teach and probably become a Pilates expert at the time, when suddenly we had to move to Asia. So for me, it was a big shock. But we did it. So in 97, we moved to Singapore. When I arrived there, I decided that I would never want to become what they call the expat ladies who lunches. And I said, you know what, I will do something. Maybe I can teach the Pilates method here. I had a Pilates reformer with me, some equipment that I had in London. So we had a big colonial house, beautiful, in these big gardens. It was so romantic and so old Singapore style. And I created a little studio, and my neighbor, was a wonderful Singaporean lady, said, oh, I would like to try. So I said, come in, show the studio. Well, to cut a long story short, within few days, I had the who is who of Singapore calling me to book a session with me. So I was very lucky. But I talk about what is luck. I was there at the right time with the right thing in the right place. So it was just perfect. So within few months and within a year, my Ivana Daniell Pilates studio at the time, it was called the Ivana Daniell Pilates studio, made the news on TV. I was fully booked. I had to hire and train two wonderful ladies who now, my first trainee is now in Washington, D.C., and she has a fantastic studio. Janine Donlon, if you hear me, thank you. You were my first one, and bless you. She made a career out of that, super successful. And another wonderful lady, Singaporean, is still teaching there. So I created this start, and it continued for a couple of years. And then sadly and suddenly, I went through a very difficult divorce. Very, very difficult. So here I was, an expat woman in Singapore with two young children, fighting in a country that is not mine. But I didn't give up. I said, more work, more understanding. So that's when I decided to study more and went into clinical rehabilitation. And I wanted to really understand more about injuries and all that. So I started with an organization from the US, Polster Pilates, specialized in clinical. And this is when the Camden Medical Center, which is the most prestigious private hospital of Singapore, offered me a place. It was year 2000. And they said, we'd like you to join the hospital. So I opened my own private rehab center. It was the first in all Southeast Asia. And that's how it started. So in 2000, I opened in Singapore Hospital in Camden. My little studio in the romantic colonial house became a huge center. We expanded. I had therapists and teachers from all over the world. Literally, in my center, we spoke every language, from Portuguese to Chinese to German, English, Italian, French, name it. I brought so many young people that I trained. It became a center, a school. And so that's how it all started in the year 2001, 2, 3, etc. Around 2005, I sort of decided to come a bit out of the Pilates world. I brought in Singapore what we call intelligent movement. Intelligent movement are methods like Pilates, Feldenkrais, Alexander technique, today the gyrotonic system, that are, they call the intelligent movement because really they are based on better understanding of your body, your posture, your lifestyle. But after a few years of observing hundreds and hundreds of clients and patients, I started to develop my own understanding and my own methods. So in 2005, I launched my new brand. It was called Life in Movement. So it was about understanding movement. It was when the word movement, I think I was one of the first to really use people movement. They say movement, what does it mean? And it was not fitness, very different. And so I started with Life in Movement, and then the journey continued more and more. I left Singapore in my center became really, it was amazing. I had people from all over the world. It was beautiful in this super modern hospital. At the same time, I joined the Amman Resorts Group Hotel, which is the most luxurious in the world. And I became a consultant for movement. So I basically opened 14 facilities within the spa under my brand, Ivana Daniell. So it was amazing. So it was an amazing journey that brought me all around the world, literally everywhere in the world. Teaching and meeting, doing retreats. So fantastic experience until in 2011, I decided to come back to London for family reasons, mainly because my children, not more children, my two men, and today, by the way, I'm a very proud grandmother. So my oldest son, Vinci, has a beautiful baby in New York. So I basically came back to London in 2011, and this is where the most important part is, where I really developed and went more into my method, Ivana Daniell Body ID.
Super. And you'll be delighted to hear that your son Christian is actually online and watching, and he has a question here. He says, what advice would you have for young people, and how can students and young professionals keep a healthy level of movement in our lives? And he also said hi.
Hello, my beautiful son. Well, the advice for young people is really understanding your posture, because you sit so much at the desk. So I really, for the younger people, is being more aware of the time that you spend at your desk and maximizing that time. So really, I educate them of organizing better what they call the station, their working station, understanding better their posture when they're sitting. And I've got really a class. I even got to the point where I go to people's houses and really look at the height of the chair, the height of the desk, the way that the angle that they are sitting and all that, because the newer generation spends a lot of time sitting. So first of all, being more aware of the time you sit and you spend at the computer. That is a must. And in terms of movement, I think we are going more into an organic way of moving, less gym, less pumping. So I would say just be more organic in your movement. Walk, bike, be active, play sports, just move with joy and be more organic. You don't need the gym, you just need to move. That's what I would say.
I think this is a really interesting point. I think as well, do you find that you should be present in the movement? For example, like when I used to do Ironmans, and I've done them in the past, and I've done lots of running and cycling and that. And when I was doing the event, I more or less just was focused on finishing the event, if you know what I mean. But I didn't really enjoy the present moment. Whereas what I've started to incorporate into my running is enjoying my run by enjoying that moment while I'm running, which gives me a greater satisfaction. Is that sort of what you mean?
Well, you see, in my body ID philosophy, I look at different movement personality. This is something that you might have never heard. What is a movement personality? Each of us has got a different one. So there are people who really enjoy that sort of rush of a run, of a competition, of being the first, of gaining the gold medal. There are people that, like me, don't enjoy that pressure, that enjoy more of a different kind of movement. They enjoy more creativity, being outdoor, not that pressure. There are other people that also enjoy another kind. So the most important thing of everything is to really, at the end of the day, recognize your body identity. And this is where we can talk about my method, because it all comes to understanding who you are. So I will guide you to really understand that and give you that tool, because you might not be suited to do that Ironman. Maybe you did it, you chose it. I would absolutely hate it, not because it's not good. It's not good for me. So it's very different. So the idea is, what is good for each individual? What is good for you might not be good for someone else. And this is, at the end, the most important thing about my method.
It's fascinating. I think that's very, very like the way the future of medicine is even evolving. It's becoming a person-centered approach, and looking at the kind of personal perspective of what the best method is to treat someone. But I think that there's a wider conversation here which we're moving into, which is around the holistic approach to health and well-being. I think you're onto something that's going to emerge in the next couple of years, which is widespread movement, shall we say, and then that becoming tailored to each individual. So tell me, if you could tell me what is exactly unique. I mean, I've got a bit of an understanding. You've kind of given us a bit of an insight into how you tailor the process and you look at the dynamics of people's movement and the type of, I suppose, attitude they have towards movement. What makes your methodology so unique? And then can you just give us some experience or ideas? How can we look after our health and well-being while we age? What sort of tips can you give us?
So what is unique is literally to understand uniqueness. So that is the basis of everything. Why I call it body ID, not only because ID is my initials, but I think it was really interesting because I look at your body identity. So your body identity is a mix of many things. Your body identity is who you are, your lifestyle. What are you today? And what is your lifestyle has brought you today? And how can you improve, or how can you get better? So that would involve your lifestyle, your movement personality, very important, your clinical history, because I need really to observe your full clinical history, your posture. How did your body adapt in those years? Your gender, very important. Now, female or male, very important, because we female have a different hormonal system, and sometimes putting us in stress is not good for us. Male need a different kind of approach. So there are so many things, and I would not say age, because I am very much like for an ageless idea of exercise. But when I say age, I would say each decade of our life will bring us some things to focus on. So if I would say to my son, Chris, I would concentrate on your posture, your time you're sitting and you're working on your computer, and what you do out later. For someone else, for a woman in her 20s and 30s, is pre and postnatal. There is a lot to say in that. In a woman in her 40s is maybe she let go, and a man, same, too much career, maybe those few extra kilos and pounds, another decade. Then it comes to menopause. And for men comes andropause and other thing, though people would say no, women don't have it. So issues with some changes, hormonal changes. And then we have all the problems related to that, like osteoporosis for women, all the injuries start, some backaches and pains and knees and things. So each decade has some specific thing, and then comes the 60s and the joints and this and that. So I would say is not I am aging, therefore I have these problems, is how did I look during each decade of my year and solve those issues that were, you know, a bit of a challenge. So if we do, I say, look after them with a good awareness. Most important is being informed, being educating, and be aware, being responsible of our own body. We eat well, we move well, we have a very positive approach in life, you know, positive. So of course, mental health is a big part of it, but I don't deal with that. I'm just a motivator of being positive. Exercise make you feel good. So then you arrive at 60, 70, and 80, that you can be super good and feel great. Of course, I don't do at 60 what I used to do at 30, though, yes, why not? If I feel I've got the strength. Someone who is 80 plus, I've got some wonderful clients in the 80s. They don't go and do the gym exercises that someone at 30, because they might not have maybe that stamina, or it might be too much for the knees. So it's all adaptive, without saying it's a limitation. It's just adapting to different environment, as simple as that. Never saying I cannot do it because I'm old. That it doesn't exist in my language.
It's such a fantastic approach. I'm really excited to kind of hear more and develop this further. I have a couple of questions that have come in. Can adults undertake corrective posture whilst working from home, sat at a desk? And what are the key elements essential for establishing positive working patterns?
They can do it at home, definitely. The key is really how you organize your desk and your chair. Because what I see, 99% people are sitting incorrectly. So you can even see on my Instagram, I give a free class on how to sit correctly at the desk. So the chair, how you're supported in your back, all these are very key things. Breathing correctly. So there are very simple things that can be corrected while you're home. Yes, you can do it on your own. And in fact, I'm a big supporter of learn, be educated, and take responsibility. Drive your own vehicle. I absolutely tell people to learn and do it on their own.
Yeah, it's fantastic advice. I completely agree. Take responsibility for your own actions.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, what are your future plans? And can you give us a little bit of advice? We're going through quite significant challenges at the moment with COVID-19. People have been at home. They've had a sedentary lifestyle, more than likely for the last 12 weeks anyway. And then also we've this problem now with people who would have been scheduled for surgery and that. What sort of advice could you give those people, and how can they boost their immune system? It's one of the things we kind of haven't got that message out there during COVID is, your immune system, boost that first and foremost, because that's one of the key elements to fight off any sort of virus,
Absolutely. What I say, I could not give a better advice than keep your life in movement. But when I say movement, is intelligent movement. So what people do, they go online and they do all these crazy classes and they do yoga and they get at the end hurt. I had a few friends who went online, they get bored and they just don't understand. They just do something that is not good and suited to their body, to their lifestyle, to their movement personality, to their clinical requirements. So what is really a healthy life in movement is walk at least 40 minutes a day. There is nothing better than walking in an open space, in the sunlight. We had an amazing luck to have such beautiful sunlight. So I think walking, number one, I do make sure that I do my walk every day. I don't need to run. I need to do a good walk. I also teach people how to maximize the power of the walk. So wearing proper shoes, not wearing a heavy bag. So there are ways that you can do it better. Doing an appropriate exercise regime, which is very important how you do it. I do give a consultation. It's called my Ivana Daniell postural assessment, where I now started to do it online, and I really do a consultation where we discuss everything, and then people will have an idea of what is most suited for them. And even during this COVID, I had and I continue teaching classes online, but I teach no group classes. I teach mainly on one-to-one people who were with me. So my advice is eat well, of course, move well, keep a positive attitude, and this being outdoor, and thank God in our government we could go out. I mean, imagine in Italy people were not even allowed to go for a walk. I think that could have not been worse, to really not allow people to walk outside. Very important. And regarding my future plans, it's what is really my dream is to educate, to make people really more responsible, more aware, to give them a tool where they understand what is good for them. Because what I tell always, at the moment, fitness and clinical exercise, they are so far apart. There is this huge gap in the market. So other people go to the gym, and I'm not a gym person. I don't like going to the gym. Or you go to the other side, where you go to a fantastic osteopath, physio, a big supporter, where these professionals are helping you to really understand from a clinical. But in between, there is nothing. And in between is what I call intelligent movement. And yes, intelligent movement is where I think I want to bring that awareness to educate each age group, because each age group has a different issue, and concentrate not on go to the gym and do that. No, this age group should concentrate in this other one, the seniors, and educate. So my words are education, awareness, and taking your own responsibility, because at the end of the day, we have been given the most beautiful vehicle. The human body is magnificent, and we should really take that responsibility as if we had a Ferrari. So that's what I say.
I completely agree with you. It's the fuel that you put in as well has an important impact on your health and well-being. We've had a fantastic session tonight, Ivana. It's just been superb. I'm really grateful that you joined us this evening. Final message: how can people get in touch with yourself? Can you give us your website details? And we look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you. So you can just look at www.ivanadaniell.com. I am also on Instagram under Ivana Daniell Official. And you can also send me an email at operations with the S at ivanadaniell.com. And I've got also, I'm starting a YouTube channel. It's called Ivana Daniell Body ID, where I give some tips and I talk about posture, and I'm trying to be more and more interactive. So please ask me questions. I will be very happy to interact with you.
Look, it's been an absolute pleasure, Ivana. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for having me as a guest.
No, it's been a pleasure.
Everyone.
We've had some great comments in the chat line there. And so thanks everyone for tuning in. We're back next week, and we'll see you again.
And have a nice
Thanks very much, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye. We're back next Sunday at 7 p.m.